Japanese is the best, though.
Oh, yeah.
Be careful with me when you towel. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn.
Hello, America.
And Bruce McGowan.
And we've got a Hall of Famer coming up.
We sure do. Okay, we are introducing now a famed baseball announcer who is called Barry Bonds' 756th home run and numerous World Series, including the A's, the Orioles, and the Giants. And, of course, my favorite announcing play, the Ruben Rivera's 3 base running error blunders. On one play, he did 2 Arizona fielders' errors. Welcome, John Miller.
Hey, guys. The Ruben Rivera thing is something that I suppose I'll always have a feeling of regret about. But I remember a couple of days after the play, I walked into the clubhouse before the game, and one of the guys said to me, well, they released Rivera today. Are you happy? So, as if it had been me all along who was gunning for him. But I think people may not realize that the play occurred in the bottom of the 9th inning of a tie game. Yeah. The Giants playing Arizona, and Rivera was the possible winning run at first base. And Marquise Grissom hit a ball into the big gap in right center out toward that 421 side. And at the moment it looked like it was about to be caught, it sailed right over the head of the Arizona right fielder and started rolling out to the 421 side, which at that moment you realize, well, the Giants would have won. Rivera, who's a fast runner, will score easily. But then I looked down to see his progress and was kind of horrified to see him. At the moment, it looked like he was running circles around second base. Finally, he's digging for third. By this time, the throw is on its way in. He's going to be out by 10 feet, but the ball miraculously takes a bad hop right into the sternum of the third baseman and rolls over to shortstop. And miraculously, the Giants are still with runners at second and third and nobody out and in great shape. But then Ruben, in part 2 of his sort of curious dash around the bases, got up, almost as if feeling that he was not entitled to actually be safe after all those mistakes. And he decided to head home. And the shortstop picked up the loose ball and threw home. And Ruben literally was out by 15 feet or so this time. So it was one of those things where then it just kind of came out. I just said that it's got to be the worst base running in the history of the game. So
it probably was. But John, did he ever explain what actually happened? Did he say I had a brain lock or something? I never heard any true explanation from Ruben Rivera.
Well, as he was coming around second, he looked back over his shoulder, and he thought the right fielder had caught the ball. So then he decided he better beat a hasty retreat to first base, but
aren't you supposed to
got to retouch second base. He cut across in front of second, and then had to go back and touch second base again, then turned around and started going back to first. And Marquise Grissom, who was almost right on top of him, started screaming at him, said, what are you doing? Just turn around and go back. And then he started to cut across in front of second base again, and the third base coach screaming at him, you got to retouch second base. So he went back and retouched second base, which was at that point the third time that he touched second.
I want to make sure he definitely touched it.
The thing about you, John, I mean, you tell it like it is. I mean, I go back to Baltimore with you when you were doing games with Joe Angel. I mean, you just that's what makes you stand. I mean, yes, you have to kind of call the game, I guess, from a home team side. But I mean, but if something like that happens, I mean, you have to tell the folks just how it is.
Well, it wasn't necessarily the worst base running in the history of the game. I really would not be qualified to make that assessment. I'm not nearly old enough to know about certain base running misadventures decades ago, but it was a little bit of hyperbole. And then, I don't know, a year or two later, a few years later, doing the World Series on ESPN Radio, the Cardinals playing the Red Sox, and the Cardinals couldn't get anything going in that series. They ended up being swept in the series, and their offense just got shut down. And the Cardinal pitcher was at third base, and there was a runner at first, and there was a ground ball hit to second. The infield was playing back for the double play. They were going to give away the run to try to go for the double play. Well, the runner at third stopped, and after they took a look at him and saw, well, he's just holding on. I'm going to go ahead and get the double play. So they then threw the ball to second, got the out there, and then he started toward the plate, and the guy with the ball at second base said, well, I can nail him. So he went ahead and threw home, and he was out. I mean, he was out by 35 feet. And I think I conjured up that same bit of hyperbole. I said the same thing all over again, as if I were outraged by it. But it's the worst base running in the history of the World Series, or whatever. So I thought, man, I got, you don't want to get outraged. You want to,
That's what I was going to ask you, John.
Describe something accurately, but you don't want to stop being outraged where you feel personally betrayed or personally it's an affront to you. That's not exactly part of the job description.
Well, John, if you remember, the 2010 World Series, Lincecum, he's got a perfect situation to go ahead and throw him out at third base, and he's running the player back, and he just kept running, and he's got the ball, and he's faking, and he runs him just back to the bag. You remember that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I kept yelling at the TV, throw the ball. And I'm thinking, how do the announcers just kind of keep it cool without, adding their own extra, emphasis of coaching?
Well, Lincecum himself offered up when it was asked about it after. He said, well, it was, and I think he used the word brain cramp. Yeah. And he says, I was a little overexcited. It was the World Series.
Sure.
And I was having a hard time containing all that adrenaline and all that excitement. So, and I just completely lost sight of what the game situation was there. And which is, I think, one thing you have to always appreciate about Lincecum, because he always, whether he's getting his brains beat out or pitching a no-hitter, he always meets with the press and discusses it. It gives you a refreshing candor. And sometimes when things have not gone well, guys don't want to have to.
Sure.
I was going to ask you about that, John.
All over again.
John, I was going to ask you about that because you've been around for so long, and you don't have to do these post-game situations with all the other reporters asking the tough question. You get to do the pregame show, and then you do your raps and so on. But you must have heard some stories about, especially Tommy Lasorda, who could pepper his language with some rather salty words.
You mean when somebody asks him what he thinks about somebody's performance?
I mean, what's your? You must have gotten along pretty well with Tommy, but do you have any good Tommy stories that we might not have heard?
Well, the story I remember from Tommy Lasorda was going out with Tommy and Bobby Valentine, who are the best of friends. And Tommy always wanted, for him, the perfect world would have been that one day he would retire as manager of the Dodgers and bring in Bobby Valentine as his replacement. That was always the scenario that they had hoped for and planned for. And, they were like relatives. It was almost like Tommy was a father figure to Bobby Valentine. But I remember it was the bat dinner, the annual baseball assistance team fundraiser in New York. And I had the honor of being the MC of the dinner, and they invited me to go down to Chinatown, way down in southern Manhattan, after the game, and the guy, or an Italian restaurant or whatever it was, Little Italy, which the two places now sort of overlap one another. But the chef, the owner of the restaurant, was a friend of Tommy's, as how many chefs in every city were Tommy. And so I thought, well, this is too good to pass up. And so I went with those guys down there, and they were telling all these great old stories. But the one that always stuck with me is Bobby Valentine had never discussed it with Tommy. Bobby was playing in the minor leagues, and Tommy was the AAA manager for the Dodgers.
Hey, John, stay with us. We have to cut to a quick commercial break, or the station's going to kill me. So stay with us because we want to hear
Hold that thought.
Hold that thought. And we're also, when we come back, I want you to do some impressions. I'm going to do now my Mel Allen this week in baseball. That is our theme, baseball. Okay, here we go. Only one third baseman in the first 100 years of the major leagues was able to take 4 batting titles. Who was it? The first 3 emails with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com. The answer to this question: only one third baseman in the first 100 years of the major leagues was able to take 4 batting titles. Who was it? Don't touch that dial. When we come back, John Miller is going to finish off his story. Okay.
John, was that Pie Trainer or Brooks Robinson? Maybe?
Pie
John
Trainer?
would know this, I bet. got any?
Batting titles?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, Brooks Robinson won.
Schmidt?
Did he win one or two? Ah, there you go, Mike
Mike
Schmidt.
Schmidt? That'd be my guess.
Mike
Yeah.
Schmidt. There you go.
I mean,
Not
just
batting titles. Those guys were not batting titles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robinson did have a couple of years where he hit over 300, but he wasn't a perennial.
But it might have been, one of the Wayner brothers or Mike Trainer. One of those guys could be. I don't know.
Okay, hold on. Stay with me.
A
Just
stumping
stay
trivia question
I always try to stump these
Thrown
guys
out
just a little bit. You know, not
by
nothing,
Edward
nothing,
Brown.
But you do know this player.
Ah,
Do you know? Oh, okay.
It's not someone really
contemporary,
obscure. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's not
Oh.
like like you said, it's not Pike Trainer from the 30s.
Okay.
You know,
All right. All right.
even though we've all heard of Pike Trainer.
Is it somebody pretty obvious?
Actually, I wouldn't say he's obvious.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
you definitely have heard of him.
All right.
Okay. That ought to be interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, here we go for segment 2, and then John, you finish off your story and get into some impressions. Okay, here we go. Ready? Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn
Riveted.
and Bruce McGowan.
What can I say?
Okay, when we cut to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question. Again, the theme is this week in baseball. No, it's just baseball. Okay. Only one third baseman in the first 100 years of the major leagues was able to take 4 batting titles. Who was it?
Well, Vernon picked. You picked Mike Schmidt.
I went Mike
I think
Schmidt.
so, not Mike Schmidt.
And it's not Pie Trainer.
It's not Pike Trainer. You ready?
Yeah.
Bill Madlock.
Bill Madlock.
Yeah, he did it for
How
the
about that, John?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
He did it for the Cubs in 75 and 76, and the Pirates in 81 and 83.
Wow.
Not
I
bad.
never would have guessed Bill Madlock.
Okay.
Wow.
We are on the phone here because he's at sports. He's at spring training where I was yesterday.
In the Valley of the Sun.
Yeah, the weather was great.
By the way, did you know Bill Madlock played second base for the Giants?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
That's why I'm thinking you guys would remember him,
yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
And so, John, would you finish off your story about
His
Tommy
night
Lasorda?
with Tommy Lasorda and Bobby Valentine.
It was, and we were telling they were having all the old stories, and I was eagerly tuned in and trying to get as many anecdotes as I could. But Tommy was, I think, the best thing about Tommy. The reason he's in the Hall of Fame, he not only won a lot of games and had a lot of success, World Series and all that, but players wanted to play for him. Tommy was a great motivator, and Bobby Valentine remembered a story when Tommy was managing in AAA, and he said, "Now, we had a guy on that team who was hitting .299 in the final game of the year, and I saw you go over during batting practice and have a little chit-chat with the manager of the other team. So our guy was hitting leadoff that day, and he laid down a bunt, and he was an excellent bunter. The third baseman, though, was playing 25 feet behind third base, so he easily beat out the bunt. And I always thought that had something to do with your little chit-chat with that opposing manager. So Tommy told the story that even Valentine did not know. And he said it would be great for this guy in AAA if he hits 300. For some reason, it just looks a lot better than 298 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, here's what I'll do. You have your third baseman play very deep. He'll bunt, get the hit. Now, as he gets his lead off first base, he'll stumble and fall, and you pick him off. And that's exactly what happened. The guy gets hit, batting average over 300. Then he gets picked off, and everybody's happy. It was a win-win. And then Bobby always remembered that and always thought that maybe something like that was going on, that there was a little conspiracy. And indeed there was.
Wow.
So now that guy, and I don't remember who the guy was, or even if I do, I don't think I want to say his name on the air, but that guy ended up playing in the big leagues for Tommy. And guys, he would do anything for Tommy. He would play as hard as possible. He always felt like he owed Tommy a big favor.
But hopefully
I think Tommy was somebody who understood human nature, and so that story really, I always thought that story really goes with Tommy Lasorda.
And hopefully Tommy would remind him not to stumble next time. But
Oh, he ordered him to stumble. That was the whole point. That was the deal.
Yeah, just for the future. Like, okay, from now on, don't stumble anymore. That we need these wins. So, can we ask you to a couple of your impressions? Apparently, Vin Scully is one of your favorites.
Probably one of the most heavily requested of you, I would imagine.
Well, I think the great thing about when you broadcast baseball and you're at the park every day and traveling around the league, The ballparks all have a little bit of a different feel, a little different flavor, and then you get a chance to meet with the different and sometimes legendary voices of the game. And Benny was always one of my favorites. For me, probably the greatest baseball play-by-play man there ever was and ever will be. I think that the ability to give you the moment and to capture the emotion, the drama, the tension, the excitement of a game and a big moment, and as well bring you stories that always seem to be apropos, to just weave them into the action without getting in the way of the action. That was the hallmark of Vin Scully. That's why he was, and still is, so great as a play-by-play man. But I always thought, most of us, me, Dwayne Kuiper, Dave Fleming, Lon Simmons, my favorite, as a Giants broadcaster when I was a kid, we just speak English, right? We say, here's the curveball, low and outside, ball two, doing well. But Vinny's much more elegant than that, right? Vinny's the 1-1 pitch on the way, curve low, ball two. Dodger Baseball brought to you by Farmer John, freshly dressed Eastern fed, pure pork sausage, Easternmost in quality, Westernmost in flavor. You ever wonder if Vinny talks like that at home? Does he wake up in the morning with his wife? Good morning, darling. Welcome to the Scully bedroom.
Hey, John, I'll tell you this. I saw him in the press box one time, and I'm not making this up. He had a little break where he wanted to go to the bathroom, and he said, this is not on the air, he said, "Say, friend, do you know where the bathroom is? Why, it was over here last year." I fell out of my chair.
It's amazing to me that he looks the same as he did 30, 40. I mean, he's aged, obviously, but he still looks like he stepped out of a wedding, little guy on top of the wedding cake almost, doesn't he, John?
Well, last year, Vinny was asked to be the Grand Marshal of the Rose Parade. And he really was so honored by that. And I remember thinking that was just so, it was kind of sweet to see his reaction to it, that he was just so honored and so shocked by it when you know who he is and how popular he is and how long he's been there and how beloved he is, and for all those many years in Southern California by all baseball fans. Of course he would be. What took him so long to get around to it? He's an icon. But Vinny was just so humbled and so pleased. But I think he took off some weight. He was looking better than I'd seen him look in years last season, and just looked great, sounded great. I think he sounded the best he'd sounded in years. I had to tune in the postseason to on my little MLB app on my iPhone, because I could hear Vinny's radio broadcast. He did the postseason on the radio because there's no local television, and he just sounded like $1 million. So it was great. And Vinny, he's 86 years old.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow.
It's going to be his 65th year as a broadcaster for the Dodgers. He was there when Bobby Thompson hit that fabled home run to break the hearts of the Dodgers in 1951. Sitting in the booth, he wasn't on the air. Red Barber had the call for the Dodgers network, but he's the walking history of the game. And then to see him walk in, it's just always a treat, and you hope that he's not even close to the end, that he's going to go on for years and years and years yet.
Well, John, I was going to ask you, in all the years that you've been announcing, what's been the most exciting or what's your favorite announcing?
Well, I think there's so many. I've been involved in no-hitters and perfect games and World Series. I did the World Series on ESPN Radio every year from 1998 through 2010. And the Giants making it to the World Series and then, of course, winning the World Series in 2010, that was a great thrill because they had never done it since coming to San Francisco. But I would have to say that in 2012, when they did it again, starting with the day in mid-August when it was learned that Melky Cabrera, who he'd really been their best hitter all year, at times he carried the ball club, was hitting close to 350, and then all of a sudden he's suspended, he's going to miss the rest of the season. And everybody was in a state of shock. And incredibly enough, and I give Bochy credit as a motivator, but also the players on that particular ball club credit, because they rallied around each other. And if anything, they played better and played harder without Melky. Their record was better for the rest of that season after he was gone. And this wasn't a trade. They didn't trade Melky and get some other player. It's just their best hitter just walked away, and he was suspended. He was gone. They lost their best hitter in the stretch run, and they played better. And then the postseason may never be repeated, where they're down 2 games to none at a best of 5 and have to win 3 straight road games. Can't be done, and yet somehow they did. And in Game 3, that a must-win, they had 1 hit for the day going into the 10th inning. How did they get to the 10th inning with only 1 hit? But they ended up winning that ball game, and they ran the table against the Reds, and then they were down to the same disastrous backs-to-the-wall scenario against the Cardinals, who had just been to the World Series the year before and won the World Series. They'd all been there before. And it's Barry Zito on the mound in St. Louis for the Giants. Nobody gave the Giants a chance. And Barry pitched the great game, and the Giants won. And then, again, they never lost again. They ran the table to get to the World Series. And then still heavily favored to lose to the Detroit Tigers of the American League with Verlander, Miguel Cabrera, Prince Fielder, and a lot of big stars. And then the Giants beat the Tigers 4 in a row as if...
like, enough of this. We don't want any more excitement. Let's just get it done.
It was like, where was that team? All the drama was over. They just thoroughly trounced the Tigers. It wasn't even close.
Yeah, so in some respects, that 2012 team is more remarkable, isn't it, John, than 2010? Because 2010 was the first. Nobody expected it. But the way 2012, as you mentioned, came off the deck was, I don't know if it's unprecedented, but I can't remember a team ever doing that in 2 series back-to-back.
No, nobody's ever done that quite the way they did it, and I think that's what makes that special. It was an entire. I wouldn't say that it's maybe more memorable or better than the 2010 year, because each of those years were special and had great stories attached to them. 2010, it was the band of misfits that somehow, the whole seemed to be greater than the sum of its parts, and 2012. They had obstacles and seemingly insurmountable challenges, and they still were able to rise up, and they were better. The bigger the challenge, the greater the obstacle, the better they seemed to play. So each one was a great story, but in some ways, I think that for 2012, the drama of it seemed to be even more remarkable than in 2010.
Okay. John, stay with us for just 2 seconds, because we're going to go to our second commercial break here. Okay, here's the theme, and again, it's baseball. Who wore the uniforms of all 4 New York Major League teams? You got to kind of think about this. Okay, the first 3 emails with the correct answer win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com. The answer to this question: who wore uniforms of all 4 New York Major League teams? All right? Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 will be right back.
I know John knows that one, right, John?
Casey Stengel.
That's
Stengel.
right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Oh, yeah.
I got to give you one sort of somewhat easy one.
You had a great story about Casey Stengel, John. You remember the home run, I guess the inside the park home run he hit for the Giants against the Yankees? They lost that series, but it was supposedly such a great run that I think it was Damon Runyon or one of those memorable, iconic writers made such. I guess his lead was, it was almost poetic the way he was describing Casey Stengel dragging his aging carcass around the base. You ever hear that story? It's really interesting.
Well, what was the one where he made it around the bases and then he slid across the plate, jumped up, and took off his hat?
Oh, that's right.
Bird flew out.
And the bird flew out, yeah. Did you ever, Casey was pretty much done with baseball by the time you were getting into it. He was kind of at the tail end. But did you ever run into him, John?
He was he was with the original Mets, and then I didn't get into baseball until
74,
10 years
right?
after that.
Yeah. But he was around. He was around. What I'm saying is he
69.
was around the game, so you probably had.
I saw him at the 1974 World Series, my first year in baseball. He was at the World Series just as one of the, baseball greats.
Sure.
He happened to be hanging out, and he looked ancient. He had to be in his mid-80s or even late 80s by then.
He was quite a character.
Well, John, I don't know if you want to stay with us for just a couple more minutes.
Well, yeah, whenever you.
Oh, okay, because there's a couple of baseball things I wanted to get into here. So
Also, since he's in the Valley of the Sun, he's done a few games. I'd just love his expectations on the 2014
go ahead and
San Francisco Giants.
Yeah.
ask him. Okay, here we go. Ready? Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn and Bruce McGowan.
That one's wide outside.
And we also have John Miller on the phone here, famed baseball announcer. And here's our second trivia question. Who wore the uniforms of all 4 New York Major League teams? John, you know the answer.
Casey Stengel.
Casey Stengel, yes. Brooklyn, 1912 to 1917. The Giants, 21 to 23. Yankees, 49 to 60. And the Mets, 62 to 65. And Vern's got a question for you.
Yeah, John, you've had a chance to do a few spring training games. I was just curious to know what your impressions are of this 2014 San Francisco Giants ball club.
Well, I'm an optimist by nature, so I'm very hopeful that the team will be good and a contender. But I really think that this team, the first question will be the pitching. And if the pitching's good, then I think everything else can fall into play. The pitching has been the foundation for the Giants' success these past several years. So, but last year it was really the reason for their lack of success. Although the offense wasn't that great either. But Matt Cain needs a big rebound. Tim Lincecum, after a good second half, can he put together a full season like that? And I think there's reason to be optimistic in both of those cases. Cain was excellent the last really 4 months or so of last season. His numbers were very comparable to his previous full seasons. But the first few weeks last year, he was getting destroyed. He was leaving pitches right down the heart of the plate over and over and over again, and gave up a stunning number of home runs. He seemed to correct whatever problems he was having, and that was no longer such a big issue. For the season, he gave up more home runs than he'd ever given up before. So I think there's good reason to believe that Cain can rebound. Lincecum had that second half. He also changed his preparation for games, and then in the off season, for the first time, he put a mound he rented out space in a warehouse, put a mound in there, and did some throwing off a mound before he came to spring training. He'd never done that before, and he made his first start of the spring down here this week, and he came out in the first inning, was throwing strikes, and then he had a few problems with his control in the second inning once he had to go into the stretch, and that's something he wants to work on. But no runs, and he had the one walk, and I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that Lincecum, who is such a fierce competitor, will rise to the occasion. Now he seems to have more of the veterans, more mature approach to preparation for the game, taking it more seriously. So, and Tim Hudson, I think, a fabulous acquisition by the Giants, coming back from the very serious surgery on the broken ankle from last year on that play at first base, and showing no ill effects from that. And I think they have him lockering in the corner of the clubhouse with Matt Cain and Tim Lincecum and Ryan Vogelsong and Madison Bumgarner. All the starters are over there together, and I just think he's a great role model for Cain and Lincecum, who've been the men. They've been the guys for the Giants for a long time. And now they don't have to be. Here's an elder statesman of the game who's had tremendous success, and I think he's a good resource for them to bounce things off of, as well as I think he's going to be a great addition to that rotation. He still has plenty left in the tank. And Madison Bumgarner, I don't think we even know how good he's going to be yet. He's getting better and better, and he probably is the ace of the staff right now. So I think there's good reason to think the pitching will be better, and conversely, I think the offense, with Pablo coming in sleeker and trimmer and in better shape. We all know, Giants fans know, what Pablo can do when he's healthy, but mainly when he's in shape. We've seen him hit 320, 315, and 325, and 25 homers, 20 homers. So I think there's reason to believe that Pablo could rise to the occasion there in a contract year. And you still have Posey and Brandon Belt, who is suddenly seeming to have found himself the last couple of months of last year. If that's the real Brandon Belt now for a full season, the sky's the limit. And suddenly you add in Michael Morris, who Bruce Bochy really wanted added to this lineup. And he had a lot of injury problems last year, and his numbers were terrible. But Bochy focused on the 9 home runs he had by the end of April last year. People forget that. That's the point where he got hurt. But 9 homers in the first month of the season, a great start. And so Bochy just feels like this is a guy who could really add some pop to the left field, where the Giants only had 5 home runs for the whole season out of all their left fielders combined last year. And Morris figures to bat 7th in this lineup. So you got at the top, Pagan and Scudero to get on base, and then the 5 straight guys who all have some thump. And I think that lineup could have some real run-scoring capability. If all of that works out, and that's always the thing you have to qualify with it, if all of those guys stay healthy and if they all are as good as they seem like they could be.
So, John, let me ask you, we are a national show, so I wanted to kind of get off the Giants for just a little bit, even though that's my favorite subject, is baseball in Australia. Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, opening day. What do you think? It's just trying to expand baseball around the world?
I think they're trying to, in a branding effort, try to internationalize the game. There are several major leaguers who have been in the big leagues who have played, and fairly recently, in the big leagues from Australia. There is a baseball league that goes on in Australia. It seems to have tailed off, though, recently. It did not really hold. And there apparently some endemic reasons for that in terms of the way the athletic system works down there. But I think they want to go down and kind of excite the people and give them some direct exposure to Major League Baseball and see if they can grow the game in that country. I know that there's a lot of interest down there, a lot of people who really enjoy playing the game from down there. So I think that's the point behind it. And I think every player owes it to his livelihood to embrace that. For the players for the Dodgers and D-backs, it may not be the thing they really wanted to do, to have to open their season down there. They may figure that a hardship, a handicap to them. But I think that, hey, this is the game. You help grow this game. You have some responsibilities other than just cashing your paycheck. So be as good as you can be, and then figure out a way to go down there and make that work and help this game out a little bit.
I wonder.
I know Zach Greinke didn't exactly feel the same way.
Yeah, I wonder if they had to do it for opening day versus just a pre-spring training type. Because it's a lot of travel for what is it, a 3-game series?
Yeah, 2 games.
2 games. I mean, that's a lot of travel.
The Giants will be hoping that maybe it was a debilitating experience for the D-backs since the Giants open against Arizona.
Hopefully extra innings.
The D-backs' 3rd game of the year will be their home opener against the Giants on March 31st. So the Giants will hope the jet lag is not quite going away. And then the following week, Arizona comes into San Francisco and plays the Giants home opener. So they'll see a lot of the D-backs right away. And it will be kind of odd. It's opening day, fresh start, clean slate, all that kind of stuff with the new year upon us. But not for Arizona. It'll be game 3 for Arizona already.
That's amazing. And did I hear correctly? The A's new spring training facility costs $20 million, or I kind of heard that rumor.
Well, the A's are still in Phoenix Muni this year, where they have been for many years. The ballpark that really was built as a springtime home for the Giants way back when, and the oldest ballpark still in use although it's been remodeled and redone and all that kind of stuff over the years. But next year, they're going to move into Ho-Ho-Camp Park in Mesa, which had, for many years, been the springtime home of the Cubs. The Cubs got a beautiful new ballpark, Cubs Park, and they've already rewritten the Cactus League record books for attendance figures. They have nearly 15,000 seats there. So they've moved over there, and now they're spending, as I understand it, about $20 million rehabbing and redoing Ho-Ho-Camp Park for the arrival of the A's next spring.
But the funny thing is, the Oakland Coliseum is really where they need to do some revamping. Of course, $20 million was just a drop in the bucket. That probably wouldn't do anything with it.
Well, it would fix their plumbing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think the city of Mesa and the state sports authority that helps out with these spring training venues, because I think they think it's good for all of them and all the businesses in the valley to have all these teams here for the spring. It brings a lot of people in from out of town, and tourism dollars, that sort of thing. So they have a budget to help these municipalities build ballparks, or in this case, rehab an existing ballpark. And I don't think the A's are involved in any of that. So the Coliseum has, I don't know what you could do for the Coliseum. You'd have to start with trying to remove that big, the Mount Davis thing out in center field. I just ran across some pictures that Jerry Royce, a longtime Major League pitcher who just loved the game, he had a great passion for the game, and he took all all these photographs of all these ballparks. And he's got a place, I don't know if it's jerryroyce.com or whatever, a blog, with all these photos, and some of them are just spectacular. I think you could probably Google it and check them out. But I was looking through these just the other day, and he has all these views because he had such great access way before game time in all these different parks that he went in. And it's his lost ballparks, parks that are no longer used in the game, except for the Coliseum, still used, but a much different look. And he's got the shots with the old bleachers out in center field and the ice plant up above beneath the scoreboards, and then the view of the open hills off in the distance where you used to be able to see the reflection of the sunset, and the hills would get that sort of that reddish golden hue and whatnot. That was a much different kind of a park than it became after they put that monstrosity out there in center field.
John, I know we're running out on time, but I would be remiss if I did not ask you just your quick impressions on the arrival of Barry Bonds back to the Giants as a hitting instructor, and the farewell tour of Derek Jeter, a guy that I never thought I'd see the day where he was going to retire. I thought this guy would play forever.
Well, you're sort of at the opposite ends of the reputation spectrum.
How about that?
Jeter and Barry Bonds, but and Derek Jeter, always one of my favorites, and I never had a problem talking to him before a postseason game, whether it be World Series, Division Series, you name it, or in a regular season game before Yankees, Red Sox, or whatever, for our Sunday night national telecast. Always accessible, and he would not give you a whole lot in terms of anything controversial. That was not his nature, but he understood the role, what we were doing, and why we needed to talk to him, and at the same time he understood the role of that he didn't want it to do anything at all that would reflect badly on the Yankees or his teammates, and because he's just a positive guy, and when he had things to say to somebody, maybe that of a harsh nature, he would do it in private, and then there would be you would never find out about that. That's for sure. So always prepared, always hardworking, and he loves the game. He's always just had a passion for it. So
John, I'd love to have you on again. Unfortunately, we're going to have to cut to our third and final. These things go fast. Our third and final.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It is.
When John is telling us stories, it does.
That's right.
I know. In fact, next week
we're
we're going to have Vita Blue on, so we're going to have to ask him about John. John, thank you so much. John, the famed baseball announcer, John Miller. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports Econ 101.
okay, guys, my pleasure.
I was going to say you could close it out with John doing his Johnny Ramsey impression.
Oh, man.
That would be great. But a lot of people don't know who John Ramsey is. The PA voice of the Dodgers.
Okay.
So,
well,
yeah.
Okay. Well. Here
Now batting number 15, Edward Brown.
There we go. The fans go wild. Okay. Third final trivia question. In 1999, St. Louis Cardinal Fernando Tatis entered the record books for doing what? First three emails with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com.
Bruce knows the answer.
The answer to this question.
Pretty sure.
In 1999, St. Louis Cardinal Fernando Tatis entered the record books for doing what? Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 will have some closing comments.
Most total bases in a game, I think. That's what I think it was 4 home runs and a triple he did. Something like that. We'll see. I'm guessing that's what it is. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I know he hit 4 homers in the game. I just think he hit a triple as well, or maybe a triple and a single or something. Did that sound right to you, Bert?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Was it something like that? I think it was most total bases.
He went crazy.
He hit 4 homers and I think he had a triple.
Well, we are asking for records.
Total bases, I think that's what it is. Because nobody's hit 5 homers in a game. I know that.
Except over 2 games.
It's over 2 games. Yeah, I remember, who was it? That guy with the Reds. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s.
Sabo? No.
Big guy. No.
No. Dunn? No.
No, he wasn't
Paul?
I can't remember. It wasn't Eric Davis. It wasn't one of the big stars. It was somebody who had a couple of good years and then sort of faded.
Oh, yeah.
Like a Glenn Allen Hill, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I like Glenn Allen.
I liked him too. Space Ghost. He was so. Did you get to know Glenn Allen Hill when he was here?
Not well. I mean,
He was
I
good.
interviewed him. He wouldn't. Again, I mean, he wouldn't give you much. Kind
Yeah.
of dry.
Yeah.
He
You know,
was.
yeah.
You'd have to get him. You get him away from the mic, though. God, he would tell stories, and he was a
I think he's
character.
from Monterey, is he not?
Yeah, no, he actually grew up in Santa Cruz.
Mm.
Wow.
And he actually surfed. He goes, yeah, can you imagine it? He says, me out there surfing? And I said, well, you know, because he's a big guy and he's
Yeah.
a bald head, you know, kind
Yeah.
of scary looking. But he likes to surf. I think he's coaching somewhere now, isn't he?
Wouldn't surprise me.
He was bopping Peter McGowan's wife. Remember Debbie? They had quite a little
Oops.
thing.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember hearing something.
Whatever, but wait, we're still on.
Yeah, that's right. We're
Oh, sorry.
yeah, let's,
So many theories
Yeah,
behind
so many
that.
theories behind that. That's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
there's no truth to that rumor.
this was accident.
Okay.
Sorry,
No,
Mary.
no,
Sorry.
No.
I forgot that the podcast includes everything.
That's right.
Everything.
Have we ever used any profanity before?
We've been very good about that.
Oh, good. We haven't told any tales out of school.
No, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, you guys ready?
Yes.
Here we go. This one went pretty fast.
Yeah,
Perfect.
John.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn,
Mm-hmm.
Bruce McGowan,
Yes, sir.
and thank you very much, John Miller, for joining us. That was very entertaining. Okay, the third commercial break. Trivia question again. The theme is baseball. In 1999, St. Louis Cardinal Fernando Tatis entered the record books for doing what?
I think it was most total bases in one game. I believe he hit 4 homers and a triple, something like that.
You know, that probably
Or-
could be the answer.
More
but it's not.
RBIs? More RBIs?
No, again, you're on the right
Okay.
track, though.
Oh.
And it's not for base running blunders like Ruben
Okay.
Rivera did.
Most extra base hits in a row?
Close. Okay, hitting 2 grand slams in one inning.
Oh, that's
Wow.
right.
Against the
That's what he
Dodgers.
did. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I should have remembered that
But
one.
that was, I mean, they probably,
I've heard of it being done in one game, in one inning. That's right.
one inning.
That was, yeah.
That was the record books on that.
Yeah, boy. Ooh.
All right, so here's our thoughts for the day. Jim Valvano said, I asked a ref if he could give me a technical foul for thinking bad things about him. He said, of course not. I said, well, I think you stink. And he gave me a technical foul. You can't trust him. And Henry Blaha, which I'm not sure who he is, but he said, rugby is a beastly game played by gentlemen. Soccer is a gentleman's game played by beasts.
Hmm.
Football is a beastly game played by beasts.
Yeah,
No wonder football is so popular.
that's very true.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
now
yeah.
next week we're going to have Vida Blue on.
Oh,
Baseball
Is there
pitcher.
any more of a glass half full guy
Oh,
than
man.
Vida Blue?
number 14,
Man.
the Blue Blazer.
The Blue Blazer.
Yeah.
But he,
Cy Young winner in the American
of the
League
Year.
and National League.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
He's got
Yeah.
a few records. He was the first pitcher to pitch, first opening day, and then the playoffs and the All-Star game. He's got all kinds of fun
Yeah.
little records.
Remember, he got married at Candlestick Park.
I do remember
Oh,
that.
yeah, remember that?
sweet.
Yeah.
Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101, where we're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and giving away more free vacations for answering sports trivia questions. And Vida Blue will be our guest. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye, America.
So long.